Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
It's the Early Exchange, your favorite program where we shape policy and look at the big story for the day. Now, we want to look at the mineral wealth for Africa. We want to do a review on that. It's on record when it comes to the largest reserves of diamonds and platinum. Africa is blessed. But the question is, why has Africa not taken advantage of these reserves to its benefits to maximize economic growth and development? Let's bring in our guest analyst who's going to provide his thoughts on this development. We are being joined by Dr. Dayo Kayode, who is a socio-political technocrat. Dr. Kayode, glad to have you join us on LXing this morning, and good to see you again. All right, but while we wait for Dr. Kayode, let me bring in Dr. Idahosa. You have two PhD holders in the house. That makes it interesting. All right. Give us a picture of Africa, when it comes to the endowment of natural resources, mineral resources. It is on record that when it comes to the large reserves of diamonds or platinum in the world, Africa has the largest share. What has that brought to Africa? Give us a picture of what we've done with it over the years and what you think is wrong if Africa has not been able to maximize that.
I think a British journalist, Meredith, had done a very beautiful work. One of the book he titled The State of Africa, and the second one, The Fortunes of Africa, to catalog the endowment that nature has given to Africa. And indeed, in the preface to his book, he actually spoke to the fact that Europeans started to envy Africa when they saw the beauty of wealth coming from Egypt, Algeria, Tanzania, Tunisia, Mali, of course, who had produced the wealthiest man that has ever lived in the world, Mansa Musa. There's no billionaire today who's as rich as Mansa Musa. Story had it that he visited Egypt, and by the time he was spraying gold in Egypt, the entire currency market in Egypt suffered for 10 years. And that shows you how wealthy Mansa Musa was. You see, that's a story of Africa, and is a sad one for that matter. You'd have seen that even those who fought for the liberation of Africa, take for example, somebody like Mobutu Sese Seko, who became so wealthy and was richer than Zaire, the country that he governed, after being a leader for some years. So, here in Africa, what we have is that the resources that should be, or nature has endowed everybody with, those who were very powerful, tend to have to confiscate it. And sometimes they form alliances with foreign partners to see how to move that which is from Africa. And that really has not benefited Africa for so a long period of time. About 2 days ago, when I was coming back, I had a young Togolese who were sharing thoughts together, and he said to me that, look, that even up to today, that Singapore still come to take sand from Togo to build, because they don't have sand in their country. So you're not even talking about natural resources, because there's so much endowment. And you can see the truck and trailers of stones and sand that they are moving from Kaduna here in Nigeria and shipped into China. So all these things are resources that nature has endowed us with. You see, but like Shola said earlier on in the other segment, because we have not invested so much in education and investing in the value chain of these resources that nature has given to us, you find that we really do not reap the benefit of the things that we have. And I think that is the sad story about Africa. God bless us. It is on record today. World Bank says that 70% of natural deposits of minerals reside in Africa. So which means of the 8 continents that we have, Africa single-handedly own over 70%, and yet is the poorest continent in the world.
All right, let's get to Dayo now. Thank you for staying with us, Dayo. All right, Dayo. The IMF says that Africa could capture about 10% of global revenue from critical minerals necessary for energy transition and technology. That's good news, right? How well has Africa done in terms of positioning itself to capture this 10% of global revenue?
It's a pity that up to today, Africa has not been able to gather its acts together towards annexing these resources. And when this is not done, the IMF will just be giving figures without us realizing what we are supposed to realize. And then, what do we now look at? What are the causes? What are the causes of this that is not making us to be able to annex the resources? Despite the two works, big works that Dr. Idahosa will do in the studio has done. Let me commend him for those two works that he said he has done. Now, why is it that we have not been able to do that? And I give two reasons. Two reasons. One, it is all about the leadership, idealistic tendencies that we have in Africa. What do I mean? What do I mean? They are always out for themselves and their cronies. I will give you an example. Look at the Niger Republic. Look at the Niger Republic. If not Bazoum was being chased out by the military, how many people will have known that France is living on the uranium that is stealing from that country? How many people we know?
Sir, the IMF saying that Africa has the chance to capture 10% of global revenue from critical minerals. How well has Africa positioned itself as a continent to get that revenue?
Well, I have a lot of reservations when it comes to the things that are said by the Bretton Woods institutions.
Why do you have reservations?
You see, because it is in their view, and I think this has been very well documented by the BBC. This is available online and people can watch it. The slavery of Africa, the things that drove it, and how even the developed world, especially the Britons and the Americans, try as much as possible to even develop theology and psychological theories around the African man in what they call today now the science of eugenics, trying to see that Africans are less human, and these are the issues. And these are really wired in the psychology of the whites, and that's why they see us as second fiddle. Why will IMF be telling us that we can get 10% of things that naturally belong to us? So this is the where, again, like he was saying at the other end, that if you have leadership that is right in place in Africa, and Africa begin to see how we can convert the resources that God has given to us for our common good, a lot will happen. What is IMF projecting? That, of course, the lithium that is in our ground, we have to take it to them to process so that we can earn money from it. Why can't it be processed here? Must that be processed in Europe?
But estimating that,
The estimate
doesn't exactly say how it's going to happen.
The estimate is based on the fact that you are going to ship the raw materials to Europe or to China to process, and then you earn revenue from selling the crude. I was going to speak to the fact that Femi mentioned earlier, why has Africa not be able to really maximize the opportunity that nature has afforded her? Mesa Otabi wrote a small book where he described the state of Africa having an Esau mindset, which is always eating things that are raw. And he said that what will transform Africa is when we develop a Jacob mindset, a mindset that nurtures. And this is very important because that little book titled it Buy Your Future. That Africa invests so much in the present and we ignore the future, which is cheaper. So this is the real issue. We should not be looking at what World Bank is giving to us. What we should be looking at is how are we going to convert what nature has given to us. Just look at what Ford did with the iron steel company in America and the value chain that came with it, that grew up a lot of billionaires in America. If you watch that movie, The Men That Make America, you see how this thing happened. How the red track came from these iron steel companies. Vehicle came from it, airplane came from it. Because there was a whole lot of value chain that was added because some people look at this and say, look, we can turn this thing into resources. So why can't Africa invest in a value chain of the resources that nature has given to her? In short, as a matter of fact, if Africa can look inward, investing in her own resources and developing it, we are not just earning 10%. Africa will be the richest continent in the world.
All right, Dr. Dayo Kayode is back with us. So why can't Africa harness these resources by herself? Let's give Dr. Dayo Kayode some time to unmute his device so we can have a clear conversation with him. But in the meantime, why can't Africa harness these resources? Now, lithium is one of the critical minerals that is needed and for technology in the world, and is also used in producing solar panels. We know that many countries in Africa have embraced solar energy, but what makes it expensive is the panels, and the batteries and some other things, and even the panels. Sometimes we have people complaining sometimes of when they buy the durability of these appliances. But we have the resources here in Africa. What has been the problem with developing these crude minerals into products that we can consume directly?
Yeah, I think is the investment in research and development, R&D, research and development, is poor here in Africa. A lot of our government, we do a lot of things by intuition, not driven by data. Somebody sit down in the house and conclude a theory without going to the field to actually investigate the real reason why some certain things happened. I give these examples so many times. I was in University of Lagos, and somebody was teaching us international economics, and he was talking about how we lost out from rubber and cocoa and palm oil because we discovered crude oil. And I asked him, were you tapping rubber before? So how did you come to the conclusion that the people that were tapping rubber left tapping rubber because they saw money in oil? How did you arrive at that? And I told him, and I said, as a young boy, I tapped rubber. I didn't stop tapping rubber because I discovered oil. I stopped tapping rubber because there was nobody to buy rubber. And then our parents who planted the rubber, who were earning so much money from the rubber, discovered that there was no longer trade around rubber. So they cut down the rubber trees and turned them into cassava farm. Not because there was any money they saw in oil that came. That was what happened. But you didn't come to us to come and ask us the reason why we stopped tapping rubber. And you are telling us that, oh, we stopped because there was money in oil. That's not true. I live in Nigeria Delta. I don't know where oil money is. I have never seen it in my life. And I don't know what the color looked like. So this is the reality of African academies, where a lot of our postulations are not driven by empirical data, which makes us different from the West. So when we sit down to begin to pontificate about solutions, without going to the field to go and ask the common man who is having the problem, what his problems are, and we sit down in the seat of power and thinking with that, we can provide solution for a situation that we have not experienced, then you have a big problem. So this for me is a real issue in Africa. We need African scholars who are going to go right into the field to begin to look at how we can deal with the problem in Africa using the resources that are within our space. That is what I feel the real issues are. Because you see here, we have resources, we are not investing in the value chain. The leaders of Africa are only just interested in getting revenue to live large, travel all around the world, send their children abroad to have a good lifestyle, and that is what we are thinking about. So nobody is actually thinking about tomorrow. If African leaders start to open their eyes and know that the investment of today will make tomorrow great, then of course we have moved from that shift. Then you will see massive investment in education. You will see massive investment in research and development. And then we begin to try to experiment and see what we can make. Somebody had an argument. I said, every month, Nigerian military personnel are destroying local refineries in the Niger Delta. These people may not be able to produce petrol, but they are producing HGO, they are producing diesel. Now, why can't we invest in these people so that they can up their technology to be able to refine diesel locally? We end up and say, oh, they are illegal refinery because we are only interested in the money that comes from crude. And we are not thinking of developing that sector, or building our own local technology around it, or harnessing the little things that we know so that we can develop on that. So these for me are the issues that Africa is facing in terms of adding value to their resource.
Let's get back to Dr. Kayode now, who joins us virtually. Glad to have you join us, Dr. Kayode.
Yes, glad I'm back. Oh.
All right, earlier you were trying to share your thoughts as regards why it's been difficult for Africa to maximize these minerals and the source of wealth that Africa has been endowed with. So you can go ahead with your thought.
Yeah, you see, I've been following the discussions in the studio. But between you and me, everything boils down to nature of leadership. It boils down to nature of leadership. Whatever you are doing in that your studio is being enhanced by the leaders of that particular station. There is nothing the leaders of that station want you to achieve that you will not be able to achieve. It's to improve on your productivity. They know how you are going to achieve it. They will invest in your training and retraining. Now, what are we seeing in Africa? The leaders that we have been having in Africa generally, they have always been a kind of a leaders without ideology. What ideas do they have? Can you compare the leaders we are having now to leaders like Obafemi Awolowo, Nyerere, Azikiwe, and co? Can we compare them? No. Because those people, they are intentional leaders. They develop themselves to become leaders. And they have known their terrain, they have known their environment. And they strongly believe in their people. But what do we see now? I was giving the example of Niger Republic the other time. You see France will come to Niger, make sure that they harness their resources and take everything to their country and then living in Niger Republic in poverty. The same thing happening in Nigeria. The same thing happening in Africa. Okay, look at the insecurity we have in Nigeria today. I have dissected it on so many fora that listen, the insecurity we are having in Nigeria today is self-inflicted. Self-inflicted in terms of they know that when people are not settled in their villages and they are being sent to IDP camps, they will have free access to their resources. Okay, listen, who are the owners of the aircraft that was dropping water, consumables inside the bush that was found in Nigeria? Who? Is it you or me? So we need to begin to have leaders that are having ideas away from leaders that are just there for survival. Listen, what do we have to do? What do we have to do with IMF dictating to us how much we sell our crude oil, how much of our minerals how much of our minerals that we are going to exploit? What do they have to do with that? We should be able to have control over our resources, how we exploit them, how we make use of them.
If you look at areas where some of these natural resources are found, sometimes there are attendant conflicts in those areas. What has been the issue?
That's exactly what I'm saying. They are bringing up that conflict so that they will have unflinching access to the resources. Look at what is happening in Sudan. Who are the people fueling it? Who are the people fueling it? Look at the insecurity in Nigeria. Who are the people causing it?
Who are you referring to?
The leaders, our leaders, and those people that are coming from abroad to come and steal the resources. Now, I will give you instances. Look at what we have been having in the northeast, northwest since all these days. Insecurity we have been having. Now, go to those villages, whether they are mining resources there or not. Now, if they are mining resources there, who are the people mining those resources? Or foreigners. So if they are foreigners, how do they get there? Why are the local chiefs, the local leaders not attacking them? We are in another era of slave trade. Whereby the obas, the community leaders were selling their people into slavery. And that's what we're experiencing in Nigeria and the whole of Africa. And let me quickly tell you this. If only Africans can come together, fight the menace of all these insecurity everywhere, and then decide to annex the potentials of their resources, I bet you Africa will go beyond the 10% IMF is talking and become the captain of the world.
All right, Dr. Kayode, when it comes to large reserves of lithium and some other resources or natural resources, you're aware that Africa is blessed. Now, according to the International Energy Agency, that between this year and the year 2050, the demand for electric vehicles and solar panels will increase, which will also translate to the demand for lithium, which will also increase in tenfold. Now, how do you think Africa can maximize these opportunities to its gain to ensure economic growth and development? What will be the starting point for Africa taking advantage of these resources?
That you just mentioned, and some others. What are they using them for? Where are they taking them to? Look at Togo. The government said they won't be selling out their cocoa again. If you know you need their cocoa to make chocolate, Bring down your factory to Togo and be making that chocolate there. Is it not happening there? It's happening. So, what are you using lithium to make? What are you using uranium to make? What are you using gold to make? What are you using diamonds to make? If you know you want to continue in business, we are not going to allow you to export this. Bring your factories down to Africa and then be manufacturing those things there. That is one. Two, even after manufacturing, you have to limit how the quantity that is being exported out of Africa, because Africa itself has a very large market. That is two. Three, Africans, we are exposed people. There is no place on the surface of the earth that we are not there. Educate your people to be able to adapt the technology there here in Africa. And then let us also have that technology within us. And then be able to control the factories, the industries that are making use of these mineral resources. Number four, let us begin to have purposeful leaders. Leaders that are ideological in nature, as against leaders that are just out for survival. Leaders that understands the implication of developing your mineral resources by yourself within your country, adding value to those resources before taking them out. Imagine a minister of agri exporting tubers of yam out to England, and those tubers of yam were later returned. Are you telling me that you don't know how you can add value to that yam? How you can add value to that yam? But unfortunately, here we are, whereby our Department of Technology, we put in so much money, and in 3 years, what they can devise, what they can research into, what they can bring out is on how to improve what do they call it now, suya. How to improve on the suya. Is that why they are supposed to be there? You're not talking about how to improve on quality, on the value of the yam you want to export, the maize you want to export, the cocoa you want to export. Look at our refineries. How do we make our refineries to work so that you can improve on the quality of crude oil that you are mining? So these are issues. If only we can follow these 5 points I have given, I promise you, we are going to go beyond that 10% and be the controller of world economy.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Dayo Kayode, for being with us on Early Exchange today. We thank you so much for your brilliant submissions.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. Enjoy the rest of your day.
And you too. All right, Idahosa. Sustainability. How can these recommendations, when implemented, how can they be sustained? There's a saying that strong institutions are the bedrock of a just and prosperous society. So let's say there are leaders, African leaders, that begin to start the harnessing of the mineral resources that Africa has. But how can this growth be sustained?
James Madison once said, knowledge will forever govern ignorance. And the people who want to be their people's leader must arm themselves by the power that knowledge gives. Sustaining Africa growth development will start and end with a functional educational system. Africa must invest in research and development. Africa must invest in the development of the minds of its people. When this is done, we will just be on top, and that is what it is, because nature has actually positioned us to be the senior brother of all the continents of the planet Earth. And they should be relying on us for survival.
Talk about Big Brother Africa, but not the one that you know. We're talking about Africa with all the resources that the continent has, playing Big Brother to other nations.
All the continents of the world.
Oh, that can happen. We look forward to that. Thank you very much, Dr. Idahosa Osamhanze, for being with us on today's edition of Early Exchange.
All my pleasure. Looking forward to a great Nigeria.
Okay, and a great Africa, and the world that is a peace where there is harmony and there's growth. That is the aim of Early Exchange, where we shape policy on business, economy, and of course, development. The show continues tomorrow, 8 a.m. West African time. Be sure to watch the show all over again if you missed any part of it when you go to YouTube, and follow us on our social media platforms on Facebook, on Instagram, on X, and share your comments. The conversation doesn't end on the table. It continues with you, letting us know what you think. I'm Blessing AJ. Stay with Sick News and enjoy your day.
And yes, indeed, the conversation continues on our social media platforms at Sook News TV. All you just have to do is to lend your voice and share your thought. Don't forget, Early Exchange will always get bigger and better. I am Femi Ayodele. I'll see you tomorrow.
Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.